here's the new Volvo ES90 and we'll see what it can do in this video. I'll explain to you why it's so much better than the EX90. We'll also talk about the pricing and the competitors. We'll look over the features and let you know who it's intended for. And with that, hey and welcome to this new video here at Jonas, and welcome to the first impression of the Volvo ES90, the world premiere here on the channel and the sedan variant of the EX90. I recently had the chance to present the first driving impression of it in Hamburg, and we also took it for a drive on snow and ice here in Sweden, though we traveled much farther north. There wasn't a separate video for that, it was more for me to find out how the car performs, because up there we have for you filmed the Volvo EX30 in the cross-country variant. Haven't you watched it? Feel more than welcome to check it out up there. Experience moose, truly beautiful Scandinavian sunrises, a hint of the mesmerizing northern lights, and a really cool car, so it's worth stopping by. But today, it's all about this huge limousine behind me. I'm aware that 5 meters isn't exactly considered a big car today. Yet, when you see this particular one on the street, I definitely say it makes quite an impression. If you don't want to miss this kind of stuff in the future, feel free to subscribe to the channel for free below the video, and now we'll discuss what the EX90 is capable of. Design-wise, it's essentially what you'd expect when they say Volvo is launching the EX90 as a sedan, because this front design is very, very reminiscent of the SUV, which I was able to show you recently, as I mentioned. I also like this new interpretation of Thor's hammer with this division. That just looks cool. And here it is also in this striking Aurora silver. So not that I've explicitly matched that today visually, but I do think my sweater and this color and the whole surroundings, that matches incredibly, very, very well. I really like this new closed front with the clear as day Volvo logo in the center and an impressively long hood. Let's see later if there's something underneath. Feel free to write in the comments what you think of the design. Overall, I think the silhouette is quite cool because when you look at it from the side, you can really see how the line along the shoulder edge finishes with such a straight, clean cut, enhancing its modern look. And you often saw that with earlier Volvo sedans too, where they almost have this muscle car appearance and just appear quite robust and substantial. I really, really like it. And also this rear with the newly designed taillights and the integration directly into the rear window. This is really well done and makes this car very appealing, not too edgy, even though there are clear lines. Like with the EX90, I feel I'm seeing it only in this huge studio, which does distort perception a bit, but I can imagine that this car doesn't appear so big in reality. A phenomenon I recently noticed with the EX90 in Hamburg. Away from the design, now to some hard numbers and the technical data, the vehicle is exactly 5 meters long, has a wheelbase of 3.10 meters, and a height of around 1.55 meters. Including the side mirrors, it's 2.10 meters wide. But how does it compare to some competitors? I checked out the two flagship Bavarian vehicles, namely the BMW i5 and the new Audi A6 e-tron. We were already able to show you both, and they have to compete with this one here. Or the other way around, however you want to see it. The BMW is slightly longer at 5.06 meters, while the Audi is a bit shorter at 4.93 meters, and they're almost identical in height. They're 2 centimeters flatter, but the interesting part is the ground clearance. When we take a look down here, the ES90's 18 centimeter ground clearance is nearly comparable to that of an SUV. We could only show you the EX30 cross-country before, which had that same 18 centimeters and was indeed an SUV, like upholstery. For example, it shows with the Polestar 4 with 16.6 centimeters of ground clearance, an SUV, but here we're talking about a large sedan. And with Audi and BMW, the ground clearances are around 14.5, 14.6 centimeters, and that shows that this car just stands very high. Overall, it doesn't build very high. If the whole height is slightly taller, but the ground clearance is much higher, it slopes the car a bit. With the optional air suspension, it's variable, and BMW and Audi also offer this, allowing the car to adjust higher or lower on the road according to conditions. The front and the drag coefficient are another story. Volvo states that the ES90 is their production vehicle with the best drag coefficient. It's at 0.25. Sounds good at first, but not compared to the competition. BMW is at 0.23 and Audi at 0.21. And that eventually also leads to the consumption values we see, but we'll get to discussing that in just a moment. I find it quite remarkable that they've managed to create a blend here with a somewhat taller vehicle cleverly camouflaged through the use of black elements, for instance, that make the car appear lower. What do you think about it? Feel free to write it in the comments. Opting for a particular ground clearance isn't solely about positioning a car within a specific segment. No, especially with electric cars, the ground clearance is always lower. This was recently seen with Tesla, for example, because the battery is positioned at the bottom of the car. And with sedans, it's harder than with an SUV, where you can build upwards, have the space, and can integrate the battery pack well in its height. And that's why it's particularly special here, that the ground clearance nevertheless. What batteries do we have here? Two types exist. One pairs only with rear-wheel drive. That's an 88 kilowatt-hour net battery from 92 kilowatt-hour gross. And there's also the larger one, which can only be combined with the all-wheel drive versions, with 106 or so. With 102 kilowatt-hours usable, how do the competitors stack up? Audi offers capacities of 75 or 95 usable, and BMW is approximately at 81.2. So the base is noticeably lower here, and this particular one is on a whole other level above. In terms of range, that means either 700 or 740, and for the competition, around 550 for Audi and just under 500 for BMW. And that's really quite impressive how far it drives. Of course, the battery is bigger too, but we'll discuss the prices later on to find out if you have to pay extra for that benefit. The setup offers 3 motor versions, like a rear drive with 245 kilowatts and a 0 to 100 time in 6.9 seconds. And it's the only one that comes with the small battery option. The all-wheel drive versions, whether it's 330 or 500 kilowatts, are always paired with the large battery pack. And with that, you go from 0 to 100 in 5.5 or 4.0 seconds. The performance variant is especially promising because having well over 600 horsepower is quite impressive, and I believe that this really can be a lot of fun. What I would still wish for is a large battery combined with pure rear-wheel drive. Maybe it will come one day. The all-wheel drive models already have 740 kilometers according to WLTP. Hard to imagine what would be possible with a pure rear-wheel drive, at least on paper, because in the last videos we also showed you with other competitors that you don't actually get that much out of pure rear-wheel drives, for example. The new Tesla Model 3 hasn't checked out the video yet. Go take a look up there. Now, as announced, onto the topic of charging. The vehicle charges at the back left, optionally via DC and, of course, AC. Like the other vehicles on the SPA2 platform, such as the EX90 and also the Polestar 3, with 11 kilowatts standard in the AC range, but with a completely new battery technology, because the ES90 is the first vehicle on this platform to come with 800 volts, and that is a complete game changer. It totally changes this car, its existence. With the X90, I thought about 30 minutes charging. It's quite all right, but 250 kilowatts really isn't quite what you anticipate from such a large technology carrier. And seeing 800 volts here is cool, because that means you get 350 kilowatt charging power with the large battery and 300 kilowatts with the small battery. But for both, you get from 10 to 80 in 20 minutes. And that's really remarkable. It ultimately means you get 300 kilometers according to WLTP charged up within 10 minutes. I'm really looking forward to seeing that, because now within the group, at Geely, for example, they've already announced the smart #5. You see the Seeker models full of charging power. And with the EX90, I felt, really? Now at this car size, still using 400 volts. And I'm very glad that this one comes with 800 volts. And it has that in both battery variants as well. I find that very, very cool. And I'm curious what you think about it. We're about to look at the interior and also talk about the software. But don't worry, at the end of the video, we'll touch on a few equipment highlights, like when you get the HD pixel matrix lights and a couple of other features, so it's worth staying tuned. Even though the interior is reminiscent of the Big Brother, it's been reinterpreted in some parts. For instance, there is now a storage compartment behind the display, and that rotate push play button is gone, which I find quite unfortunate. Now there's a roller, similar to what you might know from other competitors, and a forward-backward button that clicks nicely too. But I somehow found the other one felt nicer. So it's essentially just my own subjective opinion on that matter. Otherwise, the steering column stalk can be adjusted electrically. It's most likely operated through the display. If I just take a quick glance inside, and the display there seems to be set up correctly for operation, so it moves along with it. We already had that with the EX90. Let me take a look. Here, I could adjust it now, but because the car isn't on, It doesn't work at this point, but it can be adjusted via the steering wheel, just like the side mirrors, for example. The display is kind of supported from below, and underneath there's a wireless charging pad, an extra storage tray next to it, and two large cup holders. I think it's really cool with this roller cover. And behind that, two USB-C ports, a large center armrest, and everything really with nice materials. Behind the wood is the ambient lighting hidden. It now also comes in different colors here. The door handle is seamlessly integrated in such a way, and the overall feel is remarkably good. The seats even offer the option to be adjusted on the side if needed. The side bolsters have the ability to be adjusted both in and out. There is also a massage function, and now you can conveniently order the vegan seat with integrated ventilation. It was often an issue with Volvo that you always had to choose the full leather option. That's no longer the case with this particular model. The Bowers and Wilkins option incorporates headrests with speakers, which greatly enhance the immersive surround sound experience. There are 25 speakers in that setup, while the base comes with a Bose system with 14. In the second row of seats, much like in numerous other modern sedans today, the floor is positioned relatively high. I already criticized that in the A6, and it is indeed the case here too. I kind of sink into the seat surface a bit. Of course, SUVs have the advantage of allowing you to sit higher. However, I can stretch my legs and even slide my feet under the front seat. Material appearance exactly like when my phone falls right out of my pocket here, and also a nice wide bench seat. For €310 more, you get this child seat option in the middle. I always find it cool. An ISOFIX is smartly hidden back here on the outer seats in a really stylish manner. Additionally, the center armrest can be completely folded down. It's also a bit spring-loaded. There's a cup holder and a compartment right in the middle. The wooden finish looks fantastic. I really like that the trims here in this section are elegantly backlit, just like in the front area and also on the side. If you're thinking that Jonas looks extremely comfortable sitting there, it's because I have the ability to adjust the seat backs electrically. The adjustment is in the door. Don't worry, it's all still at prototype status. I think in the production model it will work better, and I can create significantly more space for the trunk. By the way, the large glass roof comes standard. All variants have it. I think it's really cool, with excellent materials, a 4-zone climate control system available optionally, and heated ventilated seats in the back if you choose that. That's really all beautifully crafted, and you get that across all the various variants too. So again, down here, softly foamed up stuff. Only the front speaker is a bit hard plastic, but I can overlook that. Now onto the trunk. And I find it very good that even though it's such a classic sedan, the trunk lid or the hatch opens completely, and you have very, very good access. Now, you can also clearly see the issue with ground clearance mentioned earlier, as the loading height is relatively high and the trunk volume admittedly isn't perfect either. With 424 liters, the trunk offers significantly less storage space compared to several of its competitors. For example, the i5 and also the Audi, they're around 500 liters. And I think you'll definitely notice that. There's a bit of space in the lower area to store something like an energy kick, or just the regular charging cable. There's a partition net inside. But that's not really a spot where you'd place something in everyday use. The length is really good and the width is fine. But especially upwards, you can see that you won't be able to load too high, and the slope here causes some limitations. The rear seats can be folded down in a 40-20-40 split, and as just shown inside, they can be adjusted to different angles, and that makes it a bit more flexible for you. The towing capacity, however, is quite good. The small battery with rear-wheel drive can tow 1.6 tons, and the all-wheel drive versions can tow 2 tons. But that's not the end of it. Just like with its big brother and all the other purely electric Volvo models, this one is equipped with a front trunk, known as a Frunk. Lift the latch situated right down here, open it up, and then you will discover either 49 or 22 liters cleverly hidden underneath. Depending on whether you have all-wheel drive or just rear-wheel drive, you can have more, less space as needed. For me, it's perfectly fine here. Even in the all-wheel drive version, we have enough space to easily stow charging cables. You'll also see that the warning triangle is positioned right here. These are just clever things that you don't necessarily need in the trunk, where you can quickly access and where you can theoretically have the trunk fully packed and still get here quickly. In my daily life, the Frunk is mainly there simply to optionally put the charging cable or sometimes small groceries so they don't slide around the trunk. What do you use yours for? Likes to yell below ... Prices are next. But first, promised special features. For example, the HD matrix lights, or the electrochromatically adjustable glass roof, or the air suspension. All these are indeed standard equipment options included in the ultra trim version, offering a wide array of premium features. We'll cover prices soon. The air suspension is €2,500 and the electrochromatic roof is €1,140. And you can already see it's worth taking these packages because there isn't much more room for maneuver. There's nothing more beyond that. That's one thing, because the pilot package, meaning all driver assistance systems, always costs around €2,500 extra. Because even though it's always installed and supports basic functions, at the beginning of the vehicle's life cycle, it first collects data and later can actually offer the driver more safety with a view range of up to 250 meters. You only benefit from the driver assistance systems if you invest about €2,500 extra. These systems work up to a speed of 150, as I already showed you with the EX90. You might notice some things are repeating here, and of course, a driving impression of this car will follow, so here's a reminder to subscribe to the channel. Additionally, this package includes a remote parking function, meaning the car can not only park itself, but it can also be done via the Volvo app, which is a perfect segue because we forgot to mention the software running inside the vehicle. Google Automotive, a software already used in the EX90 as well as in the EX30 and EX40. Here now a latest version and with a new chipset in the display. This means everything runs much smoother. Believe me, it wasn't like that with the X90. However, it can be retrofitted there optionally, so existing customers can add it now as well. The vehicle comes standard with wireless Apple CarPlay. Unfortunately, not Android Auto because it's already an Android-based system. Additionally, there's the opportunity for you to download a wide variety of different apps from the Google Play Store, such as YouTube, for instance. To watch, for example, the latest video from Dear Tarek from Electrobase. He's not recommended because he's super cool, which he is, of course, but because he just tested the car before us and probably searched for his own channel here. Then you can give the videos a thumbs up here. And of course, too, watch various other videos. The vertical display doesn't really invite watching 16:9 content, but you can quite comfortably view shorts on it during loading breaks. There's also everything else that Android Automotive offers, with various music providers like Tidal, allowing you to enjoy the full sound of the Bowers and Wilkins system with Dolby Atmos. And you can also watch videos, which I think is a very cool feature of the operating system, and there's also the possibility for route planning available using Google. Navigate from Gothenburg to our home in Augsburg. Should be possible, it's a limousine after all. Let's take a look at what it suggests for us. Additionally, I want to experiment with a feature that a developer brought to my attention not long ago. We'll be selecting the quickest route here with all the various charging stops. You saw that it's charging relatively quickly, so it's charged up to be able to charge again. You surely understand what I'm talking about. And then you'll also get to see the stops displayed accordingly. And I was told that if I touch the location here now, I could adjust it, and we just look at it together because it was said that it's adaptable. Maybe also here with Augsburg or here at exactly that point. So, you are my overview. You can click here, 29% after charging, and then you can specify how much you still want to have at the destination in 10% increments. I can say I would like to have 50% in Augsburg, and then the charging route planning will be adjusted, and that can be newly added. That's been around all the time, of course. Now it's basically on the level that, for example, Tesla already had. I also thought that this should be possible here, like at the various individual charging points. Please don't hold me to that. It remains in a preview stage at this point. There's continued movement on Google's side, and Volvo directly implements it into the vehicles. And I like the Google route planning. You have the Google Maps map data, the current traffic data, and it also plans your charging stops. To touch on them again, they are smartly done. That means you have charging spots are there too. Charge for 22 minutes here, 33 minutes there. I'm not sure if the route planning is actually based on this car yet, or if it's just running the EX90 software for now. It does suggest that a bit, but we'll certainly find that out for you in a thorough real-world test. Everything runs quite smoothly here, and let's take a quick look at the AC. Here you have the view, but you can also choose to display the rear seat row if you like. Here you get these quality topics, and also a timer function, which means when should the whole thing work and when not. But you can start the climate control here even if the car is empty. That means you can continue to let the car be climatized if you quickly go shopping, so you don't have to do it over the app, which I think is pretty cool. The seat heating, climate control, and so on go through the function here in the lower area. Now finally to the prices, something that of course interests you. And before that, a note. You can order the car starting today because the car arrives with the order start. I was a bit surprised myself. The car will be at the dealers by the end of the year and will also be delivered to you. And you can place your order starting today. The starting price is €72,000 for the small battery rear-wheel drive version. Then you will pay an extra €4,000 on top of that for the Plus trim variant, and then an additional €8,000 for the Ultra version. So that's 72 plus, ultimately €12,000. That gets you to €84,000 if you choose the small battery and engine configuration that includes the most comprehensive equipment package available. And then, as already mentioned, there's the Pilot package. The mid-range version with all-wheel drive and the large battery starts at €81,000, and the performance version from €86,500. But how do I compare that now? The prices themselves are, well, a bit more expensive than the competitors. For example, the base model of the i5 costs €70,000, while the Audi starts at €62,000. But you're getting more here. For one, the standard equipment is significantly higher. There aren't quite as many equipment packages or options available, and the battery is larger, plus the car boasts more power and significantly greater range. I'm very eager to hear your thoughts on this, because that means if you opt for the full equipment from €86,500, and if you take the €12,000 plus the €2,500 on top, you end up at just under €100,000. But to be honest, if you take a look at the German competition, you're quickly dealing with a higher price, and in addition to that, you also receive fewer technical specs. That's why I'm very curious to hear what your conclusion will be. My personal conclusion is that I'm genuinely surprised. When the invitation initially came to film the ES90, I thought, well, it's just the sedan version of the EX90, but it's significantly more. The 800 volts, the better features, and the really cool design appeal to me. Additionally, the software runs much smoother now, and it presents a truly impressive, cohesive overall concept with a list price that competes well against rivals. That's how I would wrap it up, and I'm curious to see what I'll say in the first driving impression of this sedan SUV. If you now want to see my first impression of the Volvo EX90, then check up here, and down here is the Volvo EX30 cross-country version.